This is John Kohler with GrowingYourGreens.com. Today with another exciting episode for you. What I'm going to do today for you guys is actually go on a winter garden tour to show you guys what I grow in the winter. Now, it's a bit past the winter garden tour time because it's actually the springtime now. But pretty much everything that I grew in the winter is pretty much now in its matured state. I have been harvesting a lot of stuff, and I still got a lot of stuff growing since we are in the spring. At this point in time, what I'm working on doing now is actually pulling out some of my winter crops, eating them as fast as I can, preserving them as quickly as I can, and getting my summer crops in. So actually, before I started really digging stuff up, I wanted to show you guys what I grew this winter to let you guys know what you guys can grow in the winter if you live in a mild climate such as this. It doesn't get too hard of frost. Now, I do need to say that this past winter was a really mild winter. You know, the year before was a hard winter, so this year everything grew great, and as you guys can see, all the greenery behind me, there's a lot of food that I'm growing literally in my 5,200 square foot lot, and the house takes up a large portion of that. I think it's quite unfortunate that most homeowners, you know, especially in this climate, the desert, may have a lot that looks like, you know, my next door neighbors. You can see a portion of it. It's basically just rocked in, you know. I want you guys to use your space that you have available for your best use. And you know, for me, what that means is growing my own food. We all need to eat, and the state of, you know, food that you could buy in the store, especially most of it is processed and has all kinds of GMO ingredients and preservatives, and they're using chemical fertilizers and chemical pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides, which may cause suicides, you know, are not good for us. So I think the best use of the space is to grow your own, and even in a difficult environment here in the Mojave Desert, you can grow food if you do it right. So let me go ahead and get down off the roof and show you guys what I have growing here in my backyard food forest. So now I'm on the ground, and we're going to go ahead and show you guys my backyard garden for the winter time. And you know, a lot of the stuff has grown. I'm in the process of actually growing more stuff, pulling other stuff out, and my garden is always a work in progress. I don't think I'll ever be done with my garden because there's always something to do, and I'm always continually planting new crops so I could reap the harvest. All right, let's go ahead and tour these 4-foot circular round raised beds, maybe two at a time, to show you guys what I'm growing and what I did grow this past winter. So in these two raised beds, I basically grew two things: onions, and you guys saw the episode where I actually planted my sprouting onions, and they've been growing actually quite well. Over on this bed, I have one of my favorite winter and summer crops, the dinosaur kale. This is a plant left over from last year. It's gone to flower, and all my new dinosaur kales down below here are a nice size. I could go ahead and start harvesting these guys any day. These guys will be here literally for the next year, producing all kinds of greens for me to eat, yes, even through the hot summer. Let's go ahead and move on to the next two beds. So in these next two beds, I basically put up these trellis panels, and I'm growing sugar snap peas and some snow peas up these panels. And then over in this bed, I got more onions. These are actually the Egyptian walking onions, which are actually growing quite nice. I thinned them out in the winter because they weren't doing so well. I topped off the bed with new compost, and they've really took into it, and they're actually growing quite well now. Also in this bed, I had some tree collards that I was growing, which is actually a cross-pollinated tree collards with some flowering kale or cabbage, which is actually now bolting. So I'm going to go ahead and save the seeds on those. Let's go ahead and go to the next two beds. All right, so the next two beds I got here, these were my early winter beds. So this was the first bed I was able to plant, actually, you know, for the winter, and I had harvested most of the stuff, and I'd let some go to flower and seed. So this had like lettuce in there, some escarole, some bok choy, some Euchina Savoy, and I was harvesting off this stuff. Also has some stinging nettles, which I actually just got stung by, and that grew during the winter, dropped seeds, and now they're growing again. And so basically, I need to pull these guys out pretty soon. I was going to maybe save some seeds and then pull it out and replant some summer crops. Over in this one, a little bit different story. Basically, I harvested all the broccoli and cauliflower. They're in here. I'm starting to pull the crops out. I just topped them off. I'm going to go ahead and make some sauerkraut with this cabbage in here. I got 6 heads left. And I got all these little plants coming up, which I believe are the wonder berries that grew wild here last year. And they just dropped seeds, and now they're coming up like crazy. So I haven't figured out if I want to pull them, grow them, or what I'm going to do. So these next two beds, like this was another little bit later than the first two beds you saw for my winter. And it's actually also has bolted. So I was going to maybe save some of the seeds or maybe pull them out. It's basically bolting, sprouting cauliflower. Also got some cabbage down here and some Brussels sprouts that bolted instead of made those nice Brussels sprouts that y'all know and love. Now I want to let you guys know, you know, as you guys can see, I'm growing like a big diversity of different crops. And this is for a few important reasons. Number one, each different crop has different phytonutrients, phytochemicals, vitamins, and minerals that are going to be helpful for me to fight off, prevent disease, and also nourish my body with the most amount of nutrition instead of just growing all these beds of lettuce. Plus, it also makes things interesting, neat, and different. And also, if I have a crop failure, right, maybe all my broccoli gets attacked by some aphids or something, but my cabbages were unaffected. This means that I'll always have some food. So I always want to encourage you guys to grow a diversity of different things in your garden. So yeah, this bed's pretty much another bed I got to rip out and replant sooner rather than later. Now this next bed is something that's going to be growing for a little bit longer anyways. And this is a late winter planting for me. We got the sugar snap peas. So these guys are my favorite. These are my fruits of the spring. So I don't have any fruit trees that are producing yet, but I always have the sugar snap peas, and they're called sugar snap peas for a reason. Nice and crunchy, and man, these guys are super sweet, especially when you load up the soil with some rock dust. And I mean, if you've eaten sugar snap peas in the store and you didn't like them, I would highly encourage you guys to grow your own because they're like at least 5 times better than the store. The ones I get at the store are like flavorless, you know, they've been picked and shipped. Don't taste too good, these taste way better. So I'm growing these up these nice trellis panels that are working pretty well for me. In the middle, I had left over from last year. This is actually the gobo, or the Japanese burdock. And then down below here, you know, I got all this amazing spinach growing. So I got basically 4 quadrants. I have spinach all down below, sugar snap peas growing up. And, you know, I'm gonna let this guy grow because this guy will grow through the summer, even in the heat. These guys, when it starts to heat up too much, these guys aren't going to make it. They're going to stop producing. I'll pull these guys out. By that time, the spinach will kind of be over because the spinach likes cooler temperatures. They're going to bolt. Pull those out and replace them with some other stuff. So these next 2 beds are, I had pretty much also a good size winter bed right here. And this is probably like mid-winter planted. I planted the flowering kales and cabbages because they look beautiful. And when they were small, I really got some nice pictures on my Instagram. So be sure to check my Instagram account out. I'll put a link down below. If you want to know what I'm planting, what I'm growing, how things are looking in my garden, you can check my Instagram pictures because I put constant updates. I try to do it every day on something I'm eating or how some of my cool plants look. And these guys look amazing. Now, and I want to let you guys know that the ornamental kale and cabbages, they're completely edible just like any other kale or cabbage would. You know, that being said, you want to try to grow them from seed if you're going to eat them, because if they are grown for ornamental purposes, they may have some kind of different, you know, fertilizers or, you know, plant hormones that may not be good to eat, like plant growth regulators. And then in this bed here, I planted all this lettuce, and as you guys can see, it looks pretty dismal, and that's because I've been coming back and just clear cutting the lettuce head. So, you know, for dinner, I might come out and pick 3 heads of lettuce and eat that for dinner. Normally I like to do what's called cut and come again, whereas you just go to the lettuce plate and just pick like the outer leaves and pick a whole bunch, and that's what I would eat. But because I have so much lettuce right now, I'm eating the whole heads, because one of my favorite parts of the lettuce to eat besides the leaves is the delicious stalk. Alright, so that's this bed. This bed will be turned over really soon into summer crops as soon as I'm able to get to it. Next bed over here, once again, we got the Japanese burdock, or the gobo root. You know, it died back during the winter, but now that the springtime, it's totally come back, and actually it's growing a little bit too quickly because it's actually shading out, you know, some of my broccoli that I grew in this bed. So I grew some nice broccoli in this bed, as well as some rutabagas that are, you know, growing here underneath, and I'll be harvesting some of those for the roots, and I'm probably going to be pickling some of those lacto-fermented style. All right, so the next 2 beds, we got these 2 beds. This is a perennial bed that I planted my tree collards in, and this tree collards, I don't know if you guys could see that, but this Guy goes up and up and up. It's probably like, I don't know, pushing 12 plus feet tall. And the girth on this trunk here, I mean, it's pretty crazy. It's probably like about that big around, no joke right here. I mean, this is the power of the green tree collards. Now I found that the green tree collards much more, you know, hardy than the purple ones that I've had, you know, losing a few in some of the harsh winters here. The green ones just seem to keep growing and growing and growing and keep thriving in the climate. And this guy I don't think is actually going to flower, but I have other ones going to flower, so I will have some seeds and make those available. Although that being said, you know, I'm going to have some really cool tree collard seeds because they're not going to be pure genetics, because I am growing other brassicas that it's cross-pollinated with. So, you know, I'm getting like over on this side I got some tree collards across with some of the ornamental kales. They look really cool, but they're also growing like a tree, but they also go to flower and seed. So I'm going to be interested to see if after it's done seeding, if the plant kind of fizzles out or if it just, you know, continues on like the true tree collards. You know, even if they do seed, they just stop making the seeds and then they continue to pump out leaves and continue to grow massively to feed you guys. The base of this, I didn't really plant a whole lot of things. I had a few extra lettuces and rutabagas and another tree collard that started from seed. Some Swiss chard, super easy to grow. It started on its own. I got some fennel over here, some rue, and of course some celery. In this bed, pretty much I planted onions from onion sets, from little starter sets for sweet onions. And I think I need to get some more irrigation drippers in here because it's not getting as much water as it should. And then I also just had some chard that was volunteer that came up, so I'm letting it grow. But I want to let you guys know, I mean, look at some of these leaves on this Swiss chard that I'm growing, man. Some of these leaves, like, they're huge, right? And this is what happens when you provide a good environment for your crops. You know, I don't use any kind of chemical, you know, man-made fertilizers that are water soluble. And a matter of fact, something that many of you guys maybe, you know, find astonishing is that actually I don't fertilize anything. You know, I'm not out here spreading fertilizer, spreading organic fertilizer, whether that's vegan organic fertilizer or anything. Literally, I just work on building the soil, and before replanting, I add nutrients to the soil and add more compost, rock dust, worm castings, and this is the result. So once you got your soil good, your plants are gonna be happier, they're gonna grow bigger and grow better for you. And of course, they're gonna taste good as well. So the next two beds I got a whole 4-foot circular bed of lettuce intermixed with the standard green romaine and some nice, beautiful red leaf lettuce. The romaine has been actually growing a little better and dwarfing the growth of the red leaf, which is something I've noticed this year. And that's this whole bed. So once again, you know, some of this lettuce is getting ready to almost bolt. So this is a good time to be harvesting whole heads and eating as much lettuce as you can. And so that's what I really like. You know, in my garden, different things are maturing at different times, and that's dictating to me what I need to eat. Like if I come out here to my garden tonight for dinner, I'm like, okay, what should I eat? What do I feel like? But more importantly, like, what do I got a lot of that's bolting that I got to use? And right now, I'm glad to have a lot of lettuce, homegrown, tastes better than anything I've ever bought. And also, like, if you really notice, like, the inner hearts of the lettuce, like the smaller leaves, actually have, like, they're kind of oily. This is because lettuce has omega-3 fatty acids, right? And so delicious and good for you. If people would only eat enough of their leafy greens for their omega-3 fatty acids, they'd be fine. Instead of most people eat far too many omega-6s, but that's a whole nother topic. So yeah, that's the lettuce. And then over on this side, this is another perennial style bed that I actually haven't managed in a while, so the soil levels dropped down a bit. I need to put a whole bunch of new compost and re-enrich this bed. But we got goji berries growing in the middle here. We also got some tree collards right here. We got the green tree collards. I had some purples in here too, but they went the way of the west. The greens have been much more resilient to the weather, and they're just really growing beautifully. In addition, down to the bottom here, I got some mint growing that just keeps coming back year after year. And of course, I got one of my favorite garlic chives. It's actually right down here. They're still hanging on. They're not super thriving, but they're known as the Ha or Chinese chives. It's the most amazing chive you'll ever taste. Like if you don't like garlic chives or onion chives because they're too strong, this is a really mild chive that almost tastes like lettuce, but not quite. All right, let's move on to the next bed to show you guys what I'm growing this winter. So the next two beds, I got basically another perennial style bed. I planted some tree collards in here, the purple ones that actually have gone to flower massively. And then at the base here, I got a lot of things that just came up on their own, including celery and some Swiss chard, some dandelion, and pretty much like I was supposed to replant this during the winter and I just ran out of time and wasn't able to do that. So now I'm ready to basically clear this out, move some plants around, and plant it out for the summer. So that's coming up real soon for this bed. Over on this side, another story. We got some more of those sprouted onions since I had a whole bunch of those. So I thought I'd plant them all and see what happens. This one's in a little bit more shadier spot than the other one that you guys saw, so it's not growing quite as quickly, but it looks like it's growing all right. All right, so the next two beds we got is a perennial bed. So I grew some cool, different kind of like perennial, like Asian vegetables that are unknown. So including this guy right here, it's called like, I don't know if the name's pronunciation is exactly right. It's like Jigaluan or something. And that pretty much didn't do too well through the winter. It stayed alive, and then now that it's spring, it's totally coming back. I also had to pull out my tree collards in this bed for some reason. It didn't make it. On the other side, I have some Dick Picotee's kale, also known as the cosmic kale, which is a perennial kale that has beautiful, you know, variegated leaves. Over here, we got a Japanese herb called yomagi. Yeah, remember that one because it reminds you of Yoda. Yomagi starts with a Y. Really cool. And then the coolest thing that happened in this bed is, this is the bed, if you guys follow me, I had a video on like putting lights out in your crops, you know, to keep them warmer during the winter. And I did that for my plants right here. And what this is the Janera procum. So the Janera procum's one of my top 5 favorite medicinal edible foods. It has actually a nice mild taste, and I believe every American should be eating this on a regular basis. There's a lot of different research that shows it's anti-diabetic and helps with blood sugar and yada yada yada. But basically, it doesn't like the frost. So if you live in a tropical climate, this thing will just vine out and take over and grow year round. If you live where it does frost, like here, and we got some good frost days, you know, it didn't make it. So a lot of the plant was burned and stuff, but down near the you know, bottom where the soil was, where there's more thermal mass, it stayed warm, and it actually it was able to live and survive, especially with my lights on it. And now it's just regrowing and resprouting for the spring. So I'm glad that that has happened here, and we're going to go ahead and continue to let this guy grow. I'm probably also going to take some cuttings off this to propagate it and grow more of this stuff, because this is one of my favorite leafy greens to grow in the heat for the upcoming heat spell that we'll be getting real soon. Over on this side, another story. This is the big bag bed. So you could check back several years ago when I have a video setting this big bag bed up. And the big bag bed is the fabric material, and the sun has been beating on it, and I tried to pick it up the other day or something, and it actually ripped. So this material is still holding, and it looks like crap, but it's still holding soil for me. So, you know, I don't know exactly what to do. I need to top off this bed. I really don't like how it doesn't stay like, you know, erect, and like all the soil will tend to fall out. So I haven't really even, you know, added soil to this, unlike my standard plastic beds that have held up fairly well over the years, but the plastic's getting actually quite brittle, and if you lean on it the wrong way, it's gonna break. But yeah, these plastic beds have held up better than the big bag bed, although the big bag bed was very simple and easy to assemble and fill. Now this is another perennial bed, so I have a lot of different herbs in here, including some thyme, some rosemary, some sage that has been doing really well. We also got some cool flowers here coming back, and we got some chives here in the bottom. And pretty much this bed has been neglected by me because I have so many things to do. It's the last priority. But I probably got some oregano on the other side too. But I'm probably going to fill this up with some more herbs and kind of let them grow in their herby ways here at the bottom. Oh, this stuff is actually called the bee balm. Remember that one. So yeah, herb perennial tree collard bed that's actually going to flower as well. All right, let's check out the last two beds over on this side. All right, so the next two beds, this is another bed that I should have did something with during the winter and just never got around to it. So it was just growing some chard that was planted actually last spring, as well as the tree collards here, and some celery that's come up on its own, maybe some dandelions. And then, so this is an annual type bed. And then over here we got another perennial bed where I got a lot of tree collards, including purple and green ones. In the base here, we got a lot of celery that grew. The comfrey, the Russian Boking comfrey has come back every year. That's really cool. It doesn't like the cool winters when it freezes, gets too cold. Looks like I also got some bee balm coming up over here too, and some parsley. And one of the coolest things I grew in here that I love a lot, and I'm so glad it came back, is the Hoja Santa. So this guy can basically spread its roots out and come up everywhere, and for me that's a good thing because the winter weather when it freezes controls this guy, but the roots stayed alive. So I'm glad this guy is actually coming back for the spring and gonna grow a full season now. You know, one of my goals as a gardener is to set up systems or set up my plants so that I really don't have to lift a finger and have food outside my door year round. You know, this is why I've interspersed with my annual beds that I kind of continually have to work, plant, and harvest in with perennial beds such as this one where I plant plants that are going to be around in the bottom. Like my parsley just keeps coming back, this celery keeps coming back, the Hoja Santa comes back, my tree collards keep growing, you know, and this takes all the work out of gardening. You know, that's what I want you guys to, you know, try to model is set up plants and set up gardens that you could just come back every year and harvest from. You know, some of the good things to plant in most locations in the US is asparagus, right? You plant asparagus once and that bed is pretty much dedicated to asparagus. It's going to grow asparagus year after year without you having to continually, you know, replant it every year, right? And that's why I like some of the perennial beds, and depending on your climate, you could have a wider range of perennial crops you could grow or a smaller ones, you know, if you get things like frost and snow. So now we're on the other side of the garden. This is where I have my concrete raised beds, and this was the first winter that I got to experience growing in my concrete raised bed garden. We got the ladder up here because I was trimming these trees down a couple past episodes. I talked about if you should take out trees to grow more vegetables and all this kind of stuff. And I just did that the other day. I chipped them all up. But I did that so that this bed would get a little more sun. It's still, you know, right behind the house, gets good shade. So I planted a lot of more shade-loving crops, and I don't dare plant any kind of fruiting crops in this bed, but mostly, you know, crops that'll produce leaves that I could eat, such as herbs and other leafy green vegetables. So in this bed I mostly got things that are more perennial in nature, such as the parsley, some achataba, some rampion, and some other different herbs here. My parsley over on this corner did quite well, and as did my Akira, or the edible canna, that you know, didn't make it during the winter, but now that it's spring, it's starting to sprout up again. We're gonna have some nice, beautiful banana-like foliage for my yard. This back end here, this whole long bed, I really didn't have the time to plant it out for the winter, but since it has heated up, that's the first thing I'm planting out for the spring/summer to get a nice jump on it are cucumbers as well as some zucchini squash. So in these next two beds, so we'll talk about this one first. It's empty. Basically, this one was almost dormant for the winter season. I had some sugar cane that didn't quite make it on this side, and then I had a lemon verbena tree that was doing pretty well, and over on the other side I had some more sugar cane that actually did overwinter by just piling soil up at the base, as well as some lemongrass because we did have a mild winter this year. All these crops basically I dug up and potted up, and also divided my lemongrass. I have a video on that I already uploaded. And in this bed I basically since I cut down a lot of the trees there, we get nice full sun here for the majority of the day with a little bit of shade. So I'm basically enriched the soil, and now I'm going to be planting out some peppers in here to see how they're going to do. Next in this bed here we had over 120 heads of lettuce planted. As you guys can see, it's matured quite well, and this is why I have more lettuce than I could actually humanly eat. I think this would feed at least a family of 10. So in this next bed, which is about a 4 foot by 8 foot bed, I got things like broccoli, so a more recent planting of broccoli that I've started to harvest, and I'm using my broccoli as cut and come again. So let's see, one of these guys, I think, right here was harvested, and you guys can see the new growths now going to produce some of the broccoli florets for me. I also got some cabbage in here as well as some cauliflower, and then also along the back I got a trellis that's growing more of the sugar snap peas since I like them so much. This bed is growing well for the brassicas, but the sugar snap peas, which are on the edge of the bed where the aquajet is maybe not pushing enough water to it, so I should have been here to do supplementary watering or increase my watering cycle, because I think they're really not growing because they're getting full sun is because lack of water. That's very important no matter what kind of irrigation system you use. So in this last bed, it's one of the sunniest beds for this side. I grew a lot of more leafy greens, which is actually probably a mid planting, and it's actually done quite well. And what I have is I got violas that are edible flowers, you know, in between some of the greens that I planted out. I also have some amazing Chinese Napa cabbage growing really well, really big here. I'm gonna make that into the sauerkraut. And then also in between here, I planted some arugula for some height. Plus I love to eat the delicious flowers on here. To me, they taste like barbecue sauce. And of course in this bed, you know, I also have some of the lettuces that I have been harvesting, you know, just basically a couple heads at a time. They're so delicious, you know, when you get the nice stalk, and they're super sweet and super tender. Just yet another reason why you should grow your own at home. So this is pretty much the tour of my raised beds. I want to show you one other area that's very important to me during the winter that I think you guys should probably have as well. Alright, so the most important area for me during the winter is my greenhouse, because this allows me to control the temperature that I have. So I, you know, dug out some of my more rare crops such as my Okinawan spinach and my Genera procums, and propagate other plants in here to keep it warmer during the winter time. So yeah, that's pretty much the last area that I was growing a whole bunch of things in. This is all an automatic watering system. And you know, this greenhouse was $17.50. I have a really good video where I assemble it, but it's kind of like blowing out. So I'm gonna, you know, improve. And I got new greenhouses that were on clearance for like, I don't know, I think like 80 bucks down from like 200 bucks or $71. And so I'm starting to put those up, and I may have another video on that for you guys, because you know, a greenhouse to me, one of the main essentials for growing food in the winter, and also to start your crops out earlier in the summertime. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick garden tour. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Also be sure to subscribe if you're not already one of my subscribers, and be sure to check my past episodes. I have garden tours usually every season to share with you guys what I'm growing, to give you guys ideas on what you can grow, and just to keep tabs on me. Also kind of interject a few cool things, tidbits of knowledge, learn along the way. And I guess what I got to do now is actually get back to growing and planting my peppers out for the upcoming spring and summer season. Once again, my name is John Kohler with GrowingYourGreens.com. We'll see you next time, and until then, remember, keep on growing. Alright, this is John Kohler with GrowingYourGreens.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you. I'm just here working in my backyard, preparing this second raised bed that's now getting pretty much full sun now, since I chopped down some of the trees in like the last episode. And what I thought I'd do, because I did have some perennial style crops in here that did make